Welcome to the DeFi Standard, and this is Mickey B. Fresh.
And Patty XRP.
And we got some exciting news today, Patty. Flare Network is pleased to partner with Ola to support a customized lending networks, further expanding the suite of DeFi products available on Flare. Ola plans to launch a lending network on Songbird and in the future on the Flare mainnet. Now, this was a really, I think, significant announcement here regarding the idea of this being like a white label lending protocol. So you could get a network of lending applications built by different creators and different projects. And this is an official partnership here with the Flare team to expand the suite of DeFi offerings. So this is a money market, basically a borrowing and a lending. So every core DeFi ecosystem has like a compound at its heart, or some type of anchor, or cream finance. Those allow for total value locked. So what does this do? This is really for the F assets. When you bring them onto Flare, now you could lend them and earn yield on them. And there is collateral, but it's a safer way to earn yield. And you could also borrow against them. So Patty, what is it about this specific protocol, Ola Finance, that makes them different from other solutions like, say, Compound or Aave?
Yeah, so Ola Finance, and getting into their docs page here, basically is a lending as a service platform that allows anyone to create their own branded lending network at the click of a button. So each lending network, which they call a LEN, consists of a number of different tokens determined by the network creator, which can be lent and borrowed. Ola Finance is not another Compound or Aave. Rather, Ola is a technology provider that enables others to build Compound-like instances governed and controlled by the creators. So with this, it's not, Compound and Aave, like on the Ethereum network and the other networks they're building out on, like that is their brand, is Compound or Aave. Ola is kind of in the background, and they're building the technology solutions for other projects to easily implement a money market protocol around whatever their project's doing. So with this, they have a few implementations that have already been created. One's with Spirit Swap on Phantom, Fuse, that protocol, as well as Ape Swap on Binance Smart Chain. And then Hector DAO has their own instance as well on Phantom. So you can see, as far as Phantom goes, they have two different instances launched there for different kind of projects that are in that network. And then additionally, they've amassed it's close to $60 million in TVL across these four instances. But yeah, like you're saying, they're really focused on like a white label solution for easily spinning up a money market and getting back into some of their other things that they're doing here. So their goal is to create an inclusive lending protocol within DeFi where assets can be listed without needing to pass cumbersome and expensive governance schemes or comply with numerous requirements. So either deep liquidity, high trading volumes, low volatility, like maybe you would see on Compound or Aave, where they're extremely selective in how they bring other assets on to their protocol. So Ola supports all kinds of assets, from early stage governance tokens to different stablecoins and backed assets, all the way to exotic receipt tokens. Inclusiveness is achieved via risk isolation. So this means that each lending network possesses its own risk profile. And if one lending network suffers a heist or a failure, assets in other lending networks are safe and can't be stolen. So this kind of goes to each one of these is a lending network. And whoever is the one that ultimately is going to have, be the creator and have the governance around it, they'll be separated from each other. Where Compound, everything is under the Compound brand, or Aave. Everything's in there is tied together. So what this allows is for different types of money markets to be built on a single blockchain with different risk profiles and different risk parameters. It's possible we could see, Flare Finance could use this and brand it with kind of like their Samurai branding that they use for their DeFi, platform and all that kind of stuff. And also you could see maybe some other project in the future. Maybe there's, let's say if Sushi Swap
DAO
came over to, Songbird or Flare Network, and they wanted to have a money market around the assets they have within their liquidity pools, then they certainly could spin up their own one, and they'd be separate instances not tied into each other. So this means, like, as far as evaluating this kind of stuff, you don't want to evaluate it on a Ola Finance level. It'll be on each individual instance and what the risk parameters are around each of those.
So they compare it to what Uniswap did with automated market makers, how there's so many different pools there. It's inclusiveness, and the goal is to allow smaller tokens to offer lending and borrowing services to their communities. So this is going to allow for that broader expansion here of money market accounts. And it won't be just like one giant, like a compound that takes all the borrowing and lending, and it only has the main assets. Of course, the F assets are going to be first. But like you said there, Patty, these tuning parameters get really interesting. And I just want to touch on here that in their docs section, and we'll post the link in the description below from Gitbook, they talk about building the lending network and some of the capabilities that the creator can add into it. So since we have the Oracle system already built into Flare, many of the price feeds are going to be there. So there's not going to be too much of integrating oracles through any other external service. Now, under the hood, there's revenue that gets generated from the fees. So there's a percentage that is earned from the protocol. So this is now a revenue generating process. And that revenue could be shared with Ola and then used and from the creator and then actually buy back if they put a governance token on it. So there's a lot of different things that could take place there. And then they had this one interesting component here, Patty, that I thought was really interesting when it came to what is possible here besides the tuning parameters. It's called a Rainmaker program. The Rainmaker program is an optional feature offered to creators that allow them to distribute specific tokens to lenders and borrowers. Creators indicate a token they wish to distribute, set the distribution speeds, then fill their reservoir contract with enough tokens. So this is an airdrop that will be distributed to the lenders and borrowers. And I think what we've seen recently happening on the XRP ledger and somewhat on Songbird is that everyone rushes in to try to get the token that is going to be snapshotted, and then they're going to get the new token airdrop. With this model, now you get those who are participating in the network, a borrower or a lender, they get the initial drop instead of just random wallets out there, looking to just get the tokens and then dump them. So at least these, with getting the tokens into the right hand, I think a lot of projects will go this route in this future because this whole airdrop frenzy, it got very hypey, and there's better ways to do it. And this is exactly one of those ways. We're going to see even more come out. So, they could split this up between supply side, borrow side different. There's different speeds. There's different rates they could do it at. And then there's the business models of tuning the parameters here regarding the interest rates that are charged on each side for the supply and the borrowing. So that's the under the hood. And there's a reserve factor with the collateral. So they can set it up in a more risk manner for certain assets. Like say if it's the bigger assets like XRP, FXRP, or Litecoin, it could have a higher collateral ratio than maybe just a new token that came out there and is very volatile.
Yeah, absolutely. And an example of kind of using that Rainmaker program is, so there's a project on Binance Smart Chain called ApeSwap, and they basically spun up this lending network using Ola Finance to go along with their DEX. So that's this trade button up here. And so with this is an example of a UI that's branded after their project. And you can see there's a supply and a borrow side. And along with these, it tells you how much liquidity is available on the borrow side. It also will tell you what is the APY that you're receiving for basically allowing your assets to be lent out to other users. So you can see like for the Binance USD stablecoin, you could basically get a 10.7% APY for lending through this protocol. Additionally, on the borrow side, we actually see some positive APYs for borrowing here. And then some assets have essentially negative APYs where they have a ton of borrowing going on. And with this, what's going on is the ApeSwap protocol is basically incentivizing users to borrow from their money market, which basically nets you a positive interest rate rather than one that is subtracting from your value that you're going to have to pay back in the future. So it's going to be good for helping to bootstrap kind of a money market, especially borrowing from it in the early days of a protocol before it gets robust enough. So that's kind of how you could use the Rainmaker program. Is they have this banana token, which is their native asset, which gets paid out to borrowers in order to encourage people to do more borrowing from the protocol, which then carries over to the supply side where the suppliers can earn higher APYs, which will attract more people to allow their assets to be lent out. And with this, to kind of give an example of how this works, so the Ola Finance money markets, you have the supply and the borrow side. So, whether it be on Songbird or Flare, we could see like Wrap Songbird, Wrap Spark, F assets like FXRP, F Doge, and F Algo. So let's say you're a supplier. What you would do is you would deposit one of the, whatever assets are available to deposit into the supply side of the protocol. And you will essentially have those lent out in a pooled lending model. And then the people on the borrow side will essentially pay interest back to you for allowing your assets to be borrowed. And the people on the borrow side, supplying assets is really easy. It's just depositing them and then earning interest over time. They'll give you kind of a ticket token, which, allows you to access those underlying assets that you've deposited on demand when you want in the future, as well as the interest accrued. Then on the borrow side, you'll have floating borrow rates. So it dynamically changes based on the supply and demand forces going on within the protocol. You have these additional incentives like the Rainmaker program where you could, airdrop governance tokens as like a subsidy to borrowers. Also, you'll have to manage your collateral. So you'll have like a loan to value ratio. Let's say it was at 50%. That means for every $100 that you collateralize on the borrow side, you can borrow $50 worth of that value. However, if your borrowed amount increases above that threshold, then you could face a liquidation, which they have different parameters around how that works depending on each instance of the Ola Finance like money markets basically being deployed. So with this, it gives you some different use cases. And also if you're wondering, is this competition for like Probity or Flare loans? I would say it's more complementary because it kind of tackles some different use cases than Probity and Flare loans on their face. Flare loans and Probity both are kind of stablecoin issuance protocols that do allow for borrowing. Probity is a little closer to this, but still you're generating a stablecoin when you're a supplier within Probity. And in this instance, you can deposit crypto assets in order to be lent out and just earn yield on those without having a stablecoin involved. You could also deposit a stablecoin here and allow others to borrow that for yield on your stablecoins. And so with this, a few of the different use cases would be leverage long positions. So let's say you have FXRP in the future and you want to borrow more FXRP because you think the price is going to increase. You could essentially collateralize some of your FXRP and then borrow FXRP from the protocol so you have more than you originally had. And if the price goes up, then you sell it at a profit, pay back whatever your interest was in the initial loan value, and then you pocket the difference with your collateral released back to you. This also enables shorting of assets. So let's say in the case of FXRP, it just had a big run up to like $5, and you're like, all right, I think we're going to have a pullback. So what you could do is collateralize. Maybe you want to collateralize a stable coin in that instance since it'll hold its value. And you could take FXRP as a borrowed asset. You immediately sell it on the market at that $5. And then let's say it falls down to $2.50. Well, at that point, you're like, all right, that's a large profit that I could have. You take some of the money that you received from selling FXRP, you buy back the FXRP at a cheaper price and pay it back to the protocol. So that would be a short position in how you would do that. Now, obviously, these things come with different risks, which we're not going to get into in this video. Additionally, it could allow you to, let's say you have $10,000 worth of stablecoins. Maybe you have the Ore stablecoin and you see an opportunity to earn some more interest on that somewhere else within the Flare ecosystem or maybe on the XRPL in the future. You could come in here, collateralize the Ore you already have, borrow more stable coins from this protocol, and then deploy those in some DeFi protocol to earn additional yield. You could also, supply stable coins on the supply side to earn yield on those stable coins. So gives us some different kind of use cases. I definitely think money markets help with price discovery with assets because they allow people to take leverage long positions, and they also allow them to short the asset in the case that they think it's overbought, which I personally believe is healthy for markets and kind of expanding that price discovery phase around all these newer assets coming out. So we'll have to see exactly how this money market is going to be deployed on Songbird and Flare. Like, is Ola just going to go ahead and do it with the Flare team, or are they going to find some other project that's going to be launching on Songbird and Flare and partner with them to start off with so they can have their own money market built out? We could see different ones in the future. Maybe there's a money market that has your more blue chip assets, which would be like the F assets and the Spark token only involved in it. And then maybe some of the stable coins that perform well. We could also see in the future that maybe for newer DApp tokens and stuff like that, it's a money market just focused on them, and that, silos the risk between those two kind of different asset types as far as ones that have been out here for a long time or newer ones that may need that price discovery but are riskier to be involved with. So I think it'll be interesting to see how this is deployed. But I'm really excited that they got a money market project available now.
Absolutely. And I think the way it's designed as a white label solution, it allows for this distribution APY, which is expressed as a percentage and the amount of interest that a user earns over the course of a year from the Rainmaker program. So projects then are going to be that are looking to launch their own project on the Flare Songbird network, then could be part of the distribution through one of these different networks, and they could have different types of targeted users, right? So we could see a lot of new tokens coming out, or we could see an NFT marketplace that needs to get their governance token out there. So there's all different ways. Now, what's interesting here down, Patty, they have, they call them O tokens, like Compound has C tokens. They're a receipt token that are issued to lenders after supplying assets to a lending network. These O tokens are exchanged for the underlying asset when a user goes to withdraw their supplied assets. Now, this is like they build up the interest. So that's something interesting here. It gives it a potential other use case with those receipt tokens. There's no real details here on exactly how that works. So we'll have to wait.
I could explain it.
How a project would use that. Yeah. So that's a yield token, right?
Yes, exactly. So let's say you have an instance where, let's say you deposit FXRP on the supply side of this protocol. What they would do is maybe issue a token called FXRP. And this is what would sit in your wallet and would allow you to redeem this FXRP at some point in the future if you want to. Let's say you come to this protocol on day one. Generally between OFXRP in the actual FXRP token, which is deposited in the protocol, it will have some starting ratio that will increase over time. Let's say this ratio is 1-to-1. In the future, though, let's say you get 10% APY for allowing your FXRP to be lent out within the protocol. And let's say you do this for an entire year. So you come back in the future with your FXRP tokens. And at that point, the ratio would be, since it's a 10% increase, 1.1-to-1. So let's say originally you deposited 100 FXRP and you got 100 OFXRP tokens back. You would still have 100 OFXRP tokens in your wallet a year later. However, the amount of FXRP you could redeem from the protocol would now be 1.1 for every one of these ticket tokens you essentially have. So at the end of it, even though you started with 100 FXRP, once you redeemed, you now have 110 FXRP. And that's kind of how the interest is tracked within the protocol and allows you to accrue it over time. And like Mickey was saying, some of these ticket tokens or, yield bearing tokens can then be used in other DeFi protocols. Like you could essentially create a liquidity pool that trades, let's say, OFXRP against Ore or something like that if somebody had a use case for doing that.
Well, they say here, this is really unique, that the APY distributions are going to be included in the borrow APY. So that will be built in there. The distribution APY, on the other hand, needs to be claimed manually. So it's just how different interests are going to come in here. And accrues over time to the borrowed. interest to pay your debt. So you could also use this interest that you're earning to pay down your debt if you're a borrower. So this is something, with yield bearing in the Flare ecosystem with the F assets, earning Spark, with your Spark earning Spark from the FTSO when you delegate. This just really breeds a perfect setting for a money market account. So one other thing I just thought of, Patty, with the integration of the FTSO and earning rewards when you're using Songbird or you're using Spark, by having one money market protocol, we know that they'll be able to still distribute and integrate the ability for in some way and also receive those F asset rewards if you're using either of those assets. And those are going to be the top used assets, right? Spark and then the F assets. So having this one protocol to do it, knowing that it's going to be integrated, because with the Flare team, we shouldn't have any of those issues where, the protocol is like, okay, we could use it, but now you don't get your ability to the FTSO or to the F asset rewards. So I think that's another reason why they went here with a solution that could be a network of lenders.
Awesome. Well, I don't have anything else to add, Mickey. You think that's good for this one?
Yeah. Just somebody, if you're going to ask, Ola does have a governance token, but we don't know what role it will play in here, if any, or if there'll be another governance token attached to whoever launches their project here. And there's going to be different distributions. So this could be definitely designed in many different ways. So we just need to keep a lookout. And I think it's healthy to see this type of money market being built at the beginning, because for a robust DeFi ecosystem to develop, you need composability. And this allows for tremendous composability with the way that Flare is designed, and bringing all that value with these F assets coming onto Flare. Everyone's looking to earn yield. So it's a perfect place to go, okay, I'll just throw it in the money market. Now I have my steady yield coming in. I got that interest, plus I'm earning my Spark. So now it's a nice, easy way to just do something that's not that complicated, that a lot of money could just pour into. And the total value locked, I believe, of Aave is like $3 billion right now. So we're going to start to see these money markets really swallow up a lot of the value. And what does that mean? It's off the circulating supply. Therefore, it decreases the secondary market supply, and could give more rise to positive price appreciation as long as demand's coming in. So it's just more use cases for the F assets and for XRP. I think that's going to be the top used asset on here. But even if you just brought over other F assets, say F Algo or FLTC, now you just put it in there. It's nice, easy way to earn yield. And then if you do want to leverage up, you can now do a little borrow. You don't have to take a stable coin. You could just borrow more of that asset.
Well, all right. With that, that'll wrap up this video. We'll be on the lookout for more information around how this is going to be deployed in the future. But this is the DeFi Standard. I'm Patty XRP.
And I'm Mickey B. Fresh.
And we're out. See y'all.